Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of On Tilt. We are so happy to have you guys join us today. Today, we got a very special guest with us today. We have Olivia Bennet. We're so excited for her to join us today. It's the ladies today, guys. It's the ladies only show today. No, we enjoy men joining us too. But Julius cannot be with us today. He has some prior commitments. So he's sending us his positive energy and his love, and he will join us on next week's show. But right now, I want to bring on Olivia. And then from there, we'll do our moment of silence, and we'll jump right on in and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh and what's going on, especially with what's happening with COVID and the programs and, resources in the Pittsburgh community to help relieve some of your stress, your mental health stress. So without any ado, Olivia, are you back there? Hey!
Hey! Hi, everyone. Hey, Mama Brown. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, the one and only Mon Valley extraordinaire.
That's Fawn. Fawn's in the Mon Valley. I'm not in the Mon Valley. I just work there, so I don't want to be, claiming other people's sex.
Okay. But you know what? You're a big supporter, and it's hard to not equate you with the Mon Valley experience. So, but yes, we had Fawn on the show not too long ago, and she did an incredible job of representing her domain, as you would say. So yes, welcome. We're getting ready to do what we normally do, is our moment of silence. We like to pray for those who are dealing with COVID. We like to pray for those who are just dealing with hardships right now. We're in a troubling place, as we look at the news and we see, all the civil unrest that's going on across our nation. It almost make me think about the history books we used to open up, Livy, where you would see all these, states fighting against each other, and, just all these, civil unrest, racial, political, like, we got a lot to be grateful for, but we sure got a lot to pray for. So let's all go into a moment of silence. Welcome back. Thank you. So Olivia Bennet, is it okay we call you Livy or Liv?
Of course, I prefer Liv.
Okay. It's a country girl in me that always got to put an E on it. Livy.
Livy's fan too. I just don't
Lizzie.
Like Olivia gives me a little PTSD because my mama. That's how she. Oh, Livy, like I'm getting called to the woodshed. So I get a little defensive when I hear my own name.
Your government name.
I know. I don't know. I should enter some therapy about the traumatization of hearing my own name. That's a problem.
But that is so real, because that's all of us. In the Black community, we have nicknames. Our names is shortened. I'm Danny. Everyone calls me Danny. So when my mom say Dannielle, I'm like, oh, okay. Look, like, what is about to go down? Is it the switch today? Or look, I'm gonna be honest. Is it the switch, the backhand, or the curse out, go to your room? And our parents had a way of not using cuss words to curse you out. So this whole, look, they could use their facial expression and you knew exactly what that meant. Like the eyes. So my mom had right. Exactly. So I understand. So we'll call you Liv, because we don't want no post-traumatic traumas, PTSD as a result of it.
See,
Um,
I felt like I could say that here. We're in on tilt. We're in this mental health space. I felt like that would be understood here. A lot of people look at me a little strangely when I say that. Like, what's wrong with you? You don't like your name? Like, like there's history there. It's complicated.
and plus Olivia is a old name, you
It
know,
really is.
so it has such a old soul to it. And so you kind of had to understand that if you weren't born in the Shaniquas and the Mercedes generation. Some like my mom name is Curlin, and then she has then her sister is everything is Ann, Betty Ann. so we Willie Ann. So everything in my mom's from South Carolina has those old school, old feel soulful names. Your name is soulful.
I thought it was a mature name. Like, I didn't grow up hearing a lot of Olivias. Olivias did not get popular until I was already grown, or I went matriculated through some classrooms and my teachers liked my name, and they named their kids that. True story. Um, so like as a kid, it just felt like a very mature name, like Olivia. Like it just was very like that doesn't sound like a kid to me. So fun. This is another true story. We moved when I was like 5 years old to Manchester, where I grew up, and so I felt like that was a good place to reinvent myself. And so I told the kids my name was Jennifer, and so they came knocking on the door and was like, "Hey, can Jennifer come out to play?" And my mom's like, "There's no Jennifer here," and I'm like standing in the background, like, "Yeah, there she is, right there." And she was like, "That is not that girl's name. It is Olivia."
Hey, look, Kip Dawson said my stepfather's aunt who raised him was an Olivia from Black Louisiana and one of the finest women I've known. So, that mature and that wholesome name, Olivia, I'm sure you got quite a bit of, teacher's pet and brownie points in school because it's one of those names that demands respect on it.
It definitely does. Don't we ain't going to talk about school. That's a whole different show. Like,
Wait,
uh,
wait.
that's a whole. I got spoiled in school, not because of my name, because my grandmother was the fifth grade teacher in my elementary school, and I actually had her as a teacher. So again, whole other show. But but yes, I did have a lot of folks that really did love the name, and as you know, it became a lot more popular in like these later generations. Like I can actually go into a store and see a keychain that says Olivia now. Like that wasn't a thing.
I think Olivia Pope put you on. You ever saw that
Olivia
show?
Pope. Well, we got
Pope
Olivia
from
Pope.
Scandal.
We got well Olivia from Law and Order SVU. Let's not forget her.
Oh, can't forget her.
Don't forget her. We had Olivia the pig. Which I was like, well, I gotta be a pig. Of all the animals, you chose a pig. Okay, great. And then of course, and this is how you can tell generationally where people come from, because then you hear Olivia from Color Purple, like, oh, you named Olivia because you're yep. So
Yep. I forgot all about that one.
Olivia the song. Remember the Olivia the song? Olivia the hooker. Like,
yes.
Yeah, that one. I'm like, please don't say that to me. That is not a compliment. But old men tend to sing that when they hear my name. You get Olivia Newton-John, wrong race.
Right.
And
right.
Right. And then Olivia from the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
Remember little Olivia from the
Well, it looks like you've been keeping up with your name pretty well.
It's not hard. It wasn't used a lot. So, keeping up with it wasn't that difficult. And then, of course,
so since we're talking about your name, tell us a little bit of who you are. Like, what do you want us to know about the Olivia we see in front of us?
Ooh, that's a good question, Mama Brown. I think first and foremost, since we're on tilt, I think first and foremost that I'm human. I have human struggles. I have I'm flawed, right? Like I have to take space for me. Self-care is a thing. Like I can't be on 24/7 and I cannot be, everything for everybody. So, I have an adverse reaction to entitlement, especially when folks feel like they're entitled to my time. So if you get a little raw lived, then maybe that's why. Um, but yeah, like I think that when you are in the public eye, folks tend to cast their own projections and things on you, and especially they tend to erase somewhat your humanity, for the good and the bad, right? Like, thinking that I can, I'm the superhero. I'm nobody's superhero, like nobody's. Um, and so while I do work for the county as a county counselor, and I enjoy that work, and I'm honored to do that work. It's work, and there needs to be separation of work, home, or self, and allow that space. And so for me, if I were answering that, would be just to recognize and acknowledge my humanity.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Liv. Because we all know that, this society right now, from what we're seeing in the media and some of the reactions we're getting, from the general public, you almost want to say, where's the grace and mercy? Where's the humanity in what the things that we're seeing from, as you know, we met at Freedom Corner,
Yes.
and I was in a rocking chair. And so we was doing that whole Black Lives, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Atiana Jefferson
Yes.
era, with so much going on summer 2020.
Mhm.
Then here's Mama Brown, a stranger from Washington, D.C., talking about, I'm going to sit here in this rocking chair and be stone throw from the very place I needed to get answers for what happened to my child. So it was a lot going on,
And
and
let's
that's
not forget, we were in a pandemic.
when we were
We
in a
still
pandemic.
are. Let's
We
stop and
still
take
are.
a pause there. We still are in a
Yes,
pandemic, and though folks
absolutely.
are trying to move as though we are not, we are.
We are.
Our case numbers, our case numbers prove that every single day. So, it's a lot moving, and especially when they're, and my preacher preached about this, and Mama Brown, I think you've been visiting my church, so you may have heard this, but the pandemics within the pandemic. So, like you have the coronavirus pandemic, you have the pandemic of racism, you have the pandemic of what we are going to be talking about some today, housing, you have the pandemic of gun violence, right? Like how many, uh,
And
the
mental health.
right, mental health here, which also attaches itself to the opioid pandemic, right? Like, so
Woo!
there's so many pandemics that we are experiencing, um and I think that actually having the coronavirus pandemic
Mhm.
helped to put some of these other pandemics into perspective, because folks were not acknowledging them or addressing them as public health issues. And now that we have had this big major public health issue, we can now start framing some of these other things in public
Mhm.
health in that framing, and get um, a better remedy for them, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you mentioned the various pandemics. I mean, we're dealing with, not to mention the pandemic
Yes.
politically. I mean, right now that seems to be stealing the center stage. Not only here domestically, but internationally too, with what's going on in Afghanistan.
Hmm.
It's a lot of pandemics that we are in, and because we're not moving as much as we were pre-COVID, we have a lot of time on our hands to catch up and drop into other people's situations and pandemics. And what we don't realize is that by us dropping in, via the news, via radio shows, podcast has tripled, quadrupled since the pandemic. Information is so free flowing right now from social media and all the things that we use to distract us and to entertain us and to inform us has also been very much a part of our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say our spirit, meaning that we have taken ownership to some of the things we've seen, and that causes mental health trauma as well. Sitting there looking at the, like you said, the many pandemics, looking at what's going on politically with the the boys, the good boys, the homeboy, no, the boys they call
You
the
talking about the old
that is,
boys club?
huh?
The
No,
old
the
boys
group
club?
that the insurgent on Washington Capitol.
Oh, the crazy people. Oh, we just gonna call the insurrectionists. Those folks.
Yes, but it's something boys.
Oh, you talking about the whole? You're talking about that alt-right group. The
Yeah,
I know what you. I can't remember their because yes,
Proud
the
Boys.
Proud
Proud
Boys.
Boys.
Thank you. Shout out
Thank
to
you, John.
John.
The Proud Boys. For some reason I can't connect proud with boys and the actions. Like my brain
Right.
don't want to give them a positive name, so I call them the bad boys. But thank you, Carmen. Carmen also, thank you, Carmen. But the Proud Boys. So all of these things are affecting us in so many areas, to fearful of our safety, not only politically, but in our neighborhoods, among our own people, among not our own people. I mean, it's just so much going on that we are having all these, like you said, pandemics within a pandemic within a pandemic. So,
Yep.
Olivia, I'm sorry, Liv. I had to go through all three.
I told you Livy was good. That is your name for me, so you're
I
good.
know it is. It really is. Livy is my name. That's my personal name for her, you guys. I'm so sorry. I just love because she's my friend. So because she's my friend, I like, that's personal to me.
Yeah.
But Liv, tell us a little bit of, in this whole scope of pandemics, how are you serving on the city council, helping our people in Pittsburgh survive this pandemic, get gainful employment, keep a roof over their head, and hold those who need to be held accountable?
So so correction, I'm on county council, and
County.
so
You know what?
yeah,
I live in the city, guys. You
I
know.
know, I know. And the
DC
city
is city.
is
Everything is city.
and the city of Pittsburgh is part of the county. So but so we all we want to do things with a county focus because we also know that we have 140 like municipalities, cities, and boroughs in Allegheny County, and so hyper focusing on Pittsburgh, while that is the largest metropolis in the county, we don't want to leave out folks that are in the other parts of the county that need services probably more desperately than they do in the city. So off of that soapbox, but so yeah, for the county, we're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can help meet people where they are. And one of those ways that we have done through the county is partnering with Action Housing for the rental assistance program, which again, through the American Rescue Plan, there was money that was allocated just specifically to help folks with utility and rental assistance. And so that application that is open right now, you can go and apply, and if you qualify, get it. I believe up to 6 months of rental assistance through this program. It's also able to be used for utilities. So that is one way. Also, if you live in housing that is HUD funded or you're HUD subsidized, if you lose income due to COVID, you should be reporting that to your rental office so that your rent can be adjusted. that was one of the things that was unclear in the last rental assistance program on how we were dealing with like housing communities and housing developments that were HUD under HUD subsidies. And so towards, through the process, that's kind of where it went. So I want to make sure that folks that live in those types of dwellings know that they have a process that automatically allows them for rental reduction in the case of losing income. So yeah, and so we want to make sure. We also want to make sure this program is utilized because the last time during the CARES Act, when we had the rental assistance program, all that funding was not used and then had to go be sent back. And so we know, that there is definitely enough need out here to definitely use that funding. It's just making sure people know where to go to get that funding. And so that's why I want to make sure folks know it's Action Housing. And if you Google rental assistance, it will take you to Action Housing, and it'll take you right to there. And then one more resource through the county is the county 211. So if for the broad spectrum, like housing, mental health, job, like for a grander platform of help and needs, you can call 211 and they can connect you to services and help you in whatever avenue it is that you're needing. So I think that 211 is utilized a lot, but I also don't want to not mention it because I don't know that everybody knows of that resource and what it's actually there and designed to do. And so I want to always make sure I'm mentioning that.
Yeah, we're going to put it up in the caption too. So repeat that one more time as far as Google.
You can Google rental assistance and it'll get to the Action Housing site.
Action Housing. Okay,
Yes.
John's going to tag that here on the show so that people can see it and be able to write it down and maybe keep it in memory. But I have a question to ask you based on that, because I know a lot of people, they're kind of intimidated with applications and going through processes. We see it across the board in the African American community, whether it's applying for scholarships, for school, medical care, whatever. We tend to get intimidated. I don't know what it is, but we tend to not always access or even know about the resources that are available. Or they immediately say that they don't qualify without even knowing the qualifications. And I will be honest with you, I'm one of them. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, and maybe somebody else is thinking this, I make too much money, even though I need help. You know what I mean? So in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm going to go ahead and disqualify myself because for income, I might make too much money. But the reality is, for a lot of people who have been able to keep their jobs, they've been taking care of other families and other family members who have lost their job. So what we actually make, we have lost income by, helping our family so that they don't go homeless, so that we all can continue to eat. Because if they go homeless, then that means they coming to your house. So you're like, okay, what you need? Let me see what I can do. But no, it's pulling resources from other family members. But there's no box on the application that will allow you to explain that. I'm not sure. I'm asking, and this is how those of us who are struggling, who could have income but are taking care of other responsibilities and other family members. How do we fit in the whole scope of things?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because if those folks are not in your household, then you can't count them. Sometimes there's some question around dependent care in some of these applications. I don't recall there being one in the housing one though. So yeah, there is definitely, even um kind of piggybacking or jump, connected. The way we define homelessness is really keeping folks from being able to access services. You have to be out literally on the street or in a shelter. If you're couch surfing, you're not technically homeless. So, but you don't have an address. So technically you are homeless. But as far as providers and resources go, that you're not. And so, yeah, there's definitely gaps in how we um, provide services and resources, and I think that has felt deeper from our community because we are more communal. We are the type that are going to be like, it's not just about me, it's about me and those around me. And how do you account for that? In the way that we're structured now, there really is not a way. And so yeah, you're sitting up here as a single person making 40 G's, then yeah, you probably aren't going to get assistance. But where do you account that you're putting out 20 of those to other family members? So um, I don't have an answer for that. I know that you can, I know you have a valid concern because I've been that person too. But I don't know the immediate answer to that. And hopefully as we collectively start reframing and shifting some of our systems and processes, that we can start having these broader conversations and really be inclusive of how other communities, be culturally competent on how other communities live. Because in all honesty, it's really set up under a white structure. White people are more individualist. They don't really live communally, where Black people live more communally. Asian people live more communally. Latinx people live more communally. So it's not just a Black thing. It's really just it's really structured under white supremacy, which white supremacy is really the is not the predominant practice as far as how other communities behave, if that makes sense. Like, we don't follow those structures. We are very communal people. And so
Yeah.
are a
And it
lot
always
of
has
others.
conflicted with that system. I call it the
Right.
old English, system. We've always, from the beginning, conflicted with that system because we're more, like you said, values and family and collectivism,
Yep.
collectivism. We're more that than we are, you know, politically structured or rules and government. Ours were family and within our tribes and our, like you said, community base. And so when government steps in, and then we're hindered by some of the things that we can do, we become very rebellious, and we just kind of just shut down and just like, okay, whatever you say, because we don't feel like we have a fight in us to address a century, decades, age old system. But we need to.
And
But we have
I know that a lot of people also are overwhelmed through the application process because it's asking for so much. So I know when we did this again back uh, last year for CARES, and I believe the application's structured similarly now in this new thing of money, that it was asking for a lot of information. So I know we were, and when I say we, I mean Take Action Mon Valley, we were actually helping people through the application process, and it was just, I think that, without that additional support, people tend to give up and not go, even if they know that they probably do qualify. They're like, that's too much, they're asking for too much, that they're doing too much.
right,
So
right.
like, I'm not even going to go out there and try to that I don't have 6 months worth of pay stubs. I don't have I don't know what I did with my electricity bill from last month. I paid it. Like, leave me alone. So people, that's really, I get it. I get it. I'm that person. That's why I can speak so fluently to it. So I get it. And I think that for us, we really have to build up community supports like agencies and organizations to come along and partner with these bureaucratic, if you will, agencies and organizations that will help to meet people where they are and really help them walk through these processes. Because I know for us, I had people that I was walking through this stuff with, they were like, "Lord, I'm gonna be honest, if you weren't doing this for me, I would have given up a long time ago. I wouldn't even have completed this." And that's sad because we're talking about 6 months worth of rent that somebody can get to help, offset this struggle that we've all been through in this pandemic. And so to forego that because the paperwork is is just a lot, asking for a lot, the applications asking for a lot. I think we need to really do better as a county, as the community as a whole, on how we support people and bring them through these processes until we get rid of these processes. I'm not opposed to that either. I'm over these systems and processes. There's so many barriers that keep the real people that need the money from getting the money. It's super frustrating. And I think that this bureaucracy, the systems and the processes are the problem. There should not be so much red tape to get X amount of dollars to Jack and Jill over here, right? Or maybe
my solution is, and I'm one of those. Hey, look, very simple. Why not in the state of, or the county or whatever of Pittsburgh, the jurisdiction, the city of Pittsburgh, if we talking about Pittsburgh, if we talking about Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, why can't we, for those people who are landlords, right? When they gave out those big checks to corporate, why not have the landlord know how many tenants he had for the 6 months and bill the government those tenants 6 months? That way the tenants don't have to qualify on paper. The onus is on the landlord. The landlord has records because the landlord pays corporate tax. Allow that landlord for 6 months to take all the rent of what he would lose, regardless if someone's paying or not. Do a suspension on the rent. Have the landlord bill the government. The government pays the landlord for proof on all the leases he has that are proof and valid, for its tenants, and that way the landlord gets the tax break.
I think give corporate. They were doing something to that effect, except they included the tenant. So yeah, I agree. If you're asking the landlord for his deed anyway, if you're asking the landlord for the lease, and you're asking the landlord all of this stuff anyway for the individual's tenant's application, then why can't you just put the onus on the landlord? And if that landlord doesn't apply, and you could put something in place. This is for landlords. Landlords are now, we have this program open that landlords can suspend tenants' rent for 6 months. Let the tenant know, you don't need to pay rent for 6 months. These landlords have the ability to get this money through the government. And if the landlord doesn't do that, it can never come back on the tenant, right? That should never come back on the tenant, and therefore it's all on the landlord on whether or not you get that money. Because we're putting the onus on the tenant. The tenant's not getting this money.
No.
If we're at the end of the day, it's not money coming into the tenant's pocket. I mean, I guess in a roundabout way, because that tenant's not paying, so they're pocketing what they're not paying potentially. But if they're not getting any money in the first place, which is why you're giving them this assistance, then they're not pocketing anything. So why you're putting all this labor on somebody who is not getting any real payout?
Absolutely. And then we don't know their circumstances at the time. They could be battling COVID right now, a mental health illness, a life trauma. Their applications is the last thing on their mind. But even at that, the problem I have with that is if you go to your landlord and say, I want it, so give my audience in layman's terms. If I go to my landlord and I say, I am struggling financially, could you please award me a one-time 6 months suspension? And with that, you go, because it don't make sense, like to your point, Liv, that it's a lot of money not being utilized. Mm-hmm. Let's get this money utilized. So if I go to my, and look, let me tell you, I'm going to be honest and transparent as I've always been. I have an apartment in Pittsburgh right now, and I owe right now. So I'm sitting here like Mama Brown, like, that is a good idea, Rolanda, because I just thought about it. And so I'm saying to myself, I'm going to call up, what's the name of the apartment complex I live in? Hold on, y'all know I have a memory issue.
You live in Bedford, don't you?
Yes. I'm cracking up right now. I live in Bedford. Look, I have been in that apartment in the last 30 days, but but look, I'm gonna call Bedford Hills apartment up when I get off this call and say, look, I need a rental suspension. And will you all go after the government and funding to get your money back? You know what they might say to me? You don't qualify. So how do the apartment or the landlord have the right to know your business and to tell you don't qualify when it should be none of their concern? The bottom line is give this person a one-time 6-month suspension, get the money back so that we can all try to get back on our feet after this pandemic.
Well, we don't have any control over private industry as a government entity, so we cannot tell landlords how to do their business. But I tell people to apply. Like I tell people, you don't, like, the worst that can happen is you applied and they say no. But what if you didn't apply and they would have said yes? So you just forfeited money that you potentially could have had. So I always encourage people to go through the process. I mean, unless they're making like 100 G's a year, but I don't work with people in that population. So I have no worries there. So yeah, I mean, I feel like, because really the qualification is that you lost, I want to say 30% of your income due to COVID. So it doesn't even matter, technically speaking, what the income was. If you can prove that you've lost 30% of it due to COVID, then you qualify.
So for my audience out here and Mama Brown me. So do we get family members to write a letter?
That says that you go to Action Housing and apply for assistance.
Yeah, but like to your point, like you said, there's no documentation for how you support other families. So part of that.
So you're saying, do you write and try to advocate for future programs to have that included? Is your question?
Well, I mean, when you say you have to verify losing 30% of your income, for some of us, we can do that by showing how we've supported other families. But the only way you can do that is by writing a letter.
And that's a good question, though, because I don't know if that would qualify, and I'm not sure if it's very specific to you lost 30% of your income due to like loss of hours in employment. Gotcha. Or if you could do like, my employment hasn't changed, but because of COVID, I've taken on some additional family responsibilities because their income changes. And maybe their answer would be, well, then they need to apply and not you. So I don't know.
They are not on the rental agreement.
Right. I don't know the answer to that, but I do hear what you're saying. And I want to say that they are specifically saying loss due to employment and like loss of hours, therefore loss of income, like 30%. But I could be wrong, and y'all might want to investigate and see if there is like that other area where it's like, okay, it's not due to income, but it's because in this time, I've had to take on some other additional responsibilities.
Yeah.
And if you can document that, then I would say that, yeah, that should be considered. But again, it's very wonky in how it's written up.
I'm gonna use girl, I'm gonna steal that word. Say that again. It's very what?
Wonky. It's very wonky.
Another original from Liv. Wonky. It's very wonky.
Yes, wonky. Like I'm gonna put it in chat for you.
Yes, wonky. I'm gonna use that. That did really sound Olivia country.
But it is like some of these things are very like complex in way they are written, and it's very heavy language for layman's folks to break down. So so in the small print, if you will, you would want to see what they're defining as loss of 30% of income. Is that just because of wages and job, or can I include some other circumstances that still
extenuating circumstances,
right? Yeah. That still equate to me losing 30% of my income.
Yeah, but I sure am going to call up Bedford Apartments and ask them, do they have any type of reprieve for those who simply, for none of your business, can't pay? But no, I'm just saying. But I real talk, I do think that the landlords can petition, and it's a better organized, structured system. They sent out those checks that we got, at the beginning of the year. What was the name of those checks? The
stimulus checks.
The stimulus checks. Those are nice, but how about something like a forgiveness program? I understand they want to forgive like $5,000 or something in student loans, $10,000. Look, America, and mostly Black and people of color, are in collegiate debt at $50,000 or more. So the little $5,000 and the $10,000, you're talking about $80,000, $100,000, even more, because we did not come from generational wealth. So we still have that part that seemed to have gotten quiet when Biden took office. I mean, he addressed it at first, but now that kind of fell to the wayside. Every time I think about certain things that affect our community, when they're on a political platform of becoming, in office, it's a big priority. But once people get in office, it's like quietly swept away. And we're like, but what happened to these promises? What's going on with our student debt? What's going on with, holding it in suspension and the stimulus check? Because guess what? The stimulus check is for us to eat. For some people, it was to eat. They lost so much income that they had to eat. They had to put gas in their car. They had to go on job interviews. They had to, buy extra mask and protection and Lysol. And Lysol, let me tell you, this is another thing, and we're going to get back. We're not going to get off point, but I'm pissed about this. Lysol went up by $3 during the pandemic. They were charging like $17 or something, even at Costco. I went at Costco recently, and I noticed it dropped about $3-4. So because I guess no one's buying it, and it's not a hot commodity like it was this time last year. So I say that to say, why is corporate allowed to gouge on us during pandemic and have these price increase, which again affects our stimulus check and our ability to be able to keep ourselves safe during this COVID pandemic and to eat. So I think something, as far as when we're talking about rental assistance, let's put the ownership on the landlord to suspend. I mean, 6 months of suspension could work wonders for a family.
Well, that would be great, but again, private industry cannot be directed by government, so we
Mm,
don't have that authority.
that's
However, a landlord can apply for rental assistance for on behalf of their tenant. That is also allowable. So,
okay.
if the landlord knows that they're not receiving rent from their tenant, and they would like to receive that rent, then maybe go and apply for it on behalf of your tenant and
That's great
take
information.
that onus off of your tenant.
That's great. I want to give a shout out to churches too, because I know firsthand that they step up and they are helping. And so a shout out, to the churches. For one, the church that I have in mind is Macedonia. You
That's
know,
my home church.
I love you guys. I so appreciate how you guys showed up for me, and so my heart is always full. And I'm putting things in place, so that I can transition out the apartment life and not be having paying mortgage here and apartment there, and trying to become a property owner in Pittsburgh. So fingers crossed, prayers up, you know um that this transition, because I'm telling you, I'm paying more in rent than I would in a mortgage. And that right there can take a toll on a person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
But
so
I'm soon to be part, what they say, will you a mixed race? I'm gonna be a mixed residence. I'm gonna be, I'll be a
Pittsburgh,
part burger.
this region is known for that. We got a lot of folks that snowbird, and that's actually what they're called. When I worked for cable, I used to snowbird accounts all the time, as they went to Florida for the winter. So it was like keeping their cable softly on, so that they can travel and not have to pay their hefty cable bill while they're not there consuming their TV. So that is region. This and for that reason, we are like the second oldest county in the nation outside of Florida, which is where all these old people go to snowbird. So you are
See,
not
you
alone.
got a word for everything. I done learned another one. I went from wonky to snowbird to wow. Okay, Liv, I'm learning.
It's because I be working in all these industries. Every industry got its own its own vernacular. So yeah, but you're not alone in the traveling of like having being hybrid. We'll call it being
Hybrid.
hybrid.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I feel like before we go though, like we should take a moment.
Yes.
And after all this heavy talk about struggle, about, you know, how folks are not, needing some assistance to make it, that we make sure that we are coming back to what this show is intended, and that's
Absolutely.
mental health, right?
Yes.
And making sure folks are taking a moment for that self check in.
Yes.
Make sure that the folks are really gauging where they are. It's still a lot. Like I know, like we said earlier, folks are operating as though we're coming or as though we're out of this pandemic, which is untrue. And it could be stressful, trying to figure out how to navigate that. Like folks are
How are the numbers there? People getting vaccinated in
I
Pittsburgh,
think
or
right now the state I think is at like 64-ish, 5-ish% maybe. So we're inching up towards the 70% mark. And I think that's just for for one shot. It's a little lower for those who are fully vaccinated. But I think that, we definitely want to still be telling people,
Mhm.
Pfizer just got fully approved. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a population of folks who were on the fence and waiting for that to happen before they got
Yeah, they
vaccinated.
want it FDA approved before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that that's happened, maybe that'll take some of the stress off of going forward and getting your vaccination. Again, I don't ever want to tell people what to do, because I think everybody's decision is their decision, and it's their body. So I don't want people telling me what to do with my body. I
Right.
definitely don't want to be doing that to other people. However, in the midst of a pandemic, when collectively how we move is collectively impacting all of us in our public health,
Yeah.
we may want to consider how our one act of being vaccinated is going to have a ripple effect through our
Yeah.
community, and especially for our children who are not even able to be vaccinated
Yeah.
as of yet. So
Exactly. But still being exposed in households. I'm happy you mentioned that because I definitely wanted to make sure that we do our due diligence to check in and make sure mentally with everything that's going on, you must practice self-care. It's so much information out here that any one of us can access, from meditation to, you know, um, reading books, listening to music, whatever works, picking up the phone and calling someone to talk to them. Even if it's a hotline for whatever issues, alcohol, drugs, substance abuse, domestic violence, there are numbers. Actually, you can reach these hotlines through 211 because I had other people on the show who have mentioned that. So the resources are there. I know that it's hard to get into therapy right now because there's a backlog. But if you need to talk to someone, you can immediately call the hotline and find someone to talk to. And back to the church, your church offers prayer all the time. So even if you don't want to talk about it, pick up the call and call a church that has praying online 24 hours, that will have someone on the prayer mission or the prayer team that are willing to pray with you. So you have resources, right? Liv, I think that's what we're trying to say. And that's why you're here, is that there are resources for everyone to be able to access. And don't let, not knowing or the frustration of going through the process hinder you, because we're losing in our community. We always say, where's the money? Where's the money for our community? Where's the money? Where's the money? Well, the money a lot of time is right there, but we're we're I don't want to just say complaining, or we're saying we need, but we're not accessing what is right in front of us, or what has been presented to us. I don't
And I
like the
think,
word complaining,
I
but
think that, and I think that, um, if things seem a little insurmountable, reaching out to organizations and even church, it like Miss Dannielle said, church, even if that church doesn't have a network set up or a system set up to help you with that exact thing, they probably know where to point you to and can
Mhm.
connect you. So just don't sit and do nothing, in a sense of, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you need some assistance, and you just don't feel like you have the energy to navigate that, like, reach out and let somebody help walk you through that, because it can be overwhelming, especially if you're, a single mom and you have multiple children and you're trying to navigate all of this. It's just a lot. So there are folks out here that will help, navigate these processes and get you through, so that you're actually getting the resources that are out there for you.
Are there any initiatives right now that you want to let our viewers know to contact you, to join, to sign something? Is there anything going on right now that you need community help and involvement?
So right now, as many folks probably know, and I have to go in like 3 minutes because I have a meeting that is directly related to this, um, is the Schumann's detention center shutting down. And so obviously, that is going to impact Black and brown people a whole hell of a lot. Because our children, if they're brushing up against the juvenile justice system and are being held by detention center, they're no longer going to be here in Allegheny County and be moved to other counties and possibly states. So how are we setting up support systems for families who need to reach those children? How are we setting up support systems and making sure that their representation doesn't suffer because of them being so far out? So right now I'm trying to really convene a table to bring community stakeholders together to start having that discussion, to start figuring out alternatives and some other solutions so that we're not having our families, and especially and most importantly our children who are in this system, suffer because of whatever failures happened that made this facility have to close. So that's the most pressing thing I think I'm working on right now. Of course, I always got some bills in the works, so I'll let y'all know. I'm about to put up a bill now for next meeting that is going to talk about duty of reporting to on 911's calls, where folks are using 911 as a weaponization when they don't like somebody in their presence based on race, gender, ethnicity, sexual.
Like the Karens and the Beckys.
Absolutely.
not the Olivias.
No, I was trying not to call it the Anti-Karen Act. Like I shot it over to my policymaker. He was like, "That's interesting," but yes. So yes, exactly that. I'm actually about to introduce something around that. Absolutely.
So you want people to follow you on Instagram or follow a certain page or anything like that?
Follow me on Facebook. I'm Olivia Bennet on my regular page. I'm Liv Bennet. I have two pages: Liv Bennet, my campaign page, and Liv Bennet, my county councilor page. Live for 13 on Twitter. Live for 13 on Instagram. So yeah, y'all can follow me, and I definitely post on upcoming things. And also, you can follow Allegheny County Council. They'll post when the meetings are, links to the meetings. We are meeting in person, but we are still streaming, so folks can watch meetings live on without coming in person. So yeah.
Well, Liv, thank you. I know you got to go because you're a very busy person. Hey, I love you.
I love you. And thank you.
Thank you for being on this show. All right, grace and mercy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, folks, there you have it. If you need help, with your rent, I can't promise you that the system, is such that if you need help but there's criteria you have to meet. For a lot of people, you are working and, but also taking care of other families who may be hard, pressed or down on their luck right now or lost a job. I get it. Trust me, I get it. So, we want to know about resources, period, in place that will help us to be able to maintain, right? To be able to have a roof over our heads and not be stressful of the bills. I mean, bills alone, when we didn't have a pandemic, when the stock market went crazy, you had people killing themselves. So bills and financial obligations are extremely stressful, and it takes a toll on your mental health. So I want you all, if you're in a financial situation or someone in a financial situation, please follow the steps of contacting COVID rental relief agencies in Allegheny County. I want you all to, if you're in a rental situation, talk to your landlord. Ask your landlord to petition rent, to suspend your rent and to petition to get that money back through the government, to whatever necessary papers they need to, because look, the landlord got to pay their bills too. So these are the things that I want you to do. And also go through your faith organizations. A lot of times they have money set aside, to help, even if it's to pay 1 month rent or to buy groceries or, whatever resources. You'll be surprised. A lot of churches are stepping up and are in position to help as well. But more importantly, I just want you guys to be mentally healthy, mentally stable, and mentally sound. I just want you to have a peace about you. It's nothing like having peace. Trust me, Mama Brown knows. She knows how important it is to have peace about where you are at any given time in your living situation. Okay, I love y'all. I thank you all for joining us. Let's see who we had today. We had Kip. Kip, thank you for awesome feedback. Thank you so much, Rolanda. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your feedback. Yeah, wonky. That's the word I didn't know. So look, I'm on it now. Terrence. I think Terrence is I think that's Livy's husband. Thank you for joining and supporting your wife. She's amazing, doing amazing things. Cameron, thank you, Cameron, for reminding me that it was the Proud Boys. My mind can't put Proud Boys together for some reason. I don't want to call them the Bad Boys, not Proud Boys. Let's see who else we have. So, and I want to thank John for his organization and producing this show with Julius and I. And Julius, I can't wait to see you next week. I miss you. Love you guys. Talk to you next week. Thank you for joining us on another episode of On Tilt.